Hey everyone, what's up? Welcome to an, I would say, epic new tutorial, because today we want to build a location tracker. We've done something similar in the past, but today we want to use Capacitor, we want to integrate Firebase, and then again we will use Google Maps and the geolocation, and all of this combined is really a great tutorial. I really enjoyed preparing it. I hope you enjoy it. So let's do this. I've already created a blank new project as always, but as we're using Capacitor, more on this in a second, we can start the project actually using the Ionic CLI and the -- Capacitor at the end. You could also simply start a blank new Ionic app and then afterwards get started and run, where do we go? npm install save capacitor core and CLI, npx capac init, and then you're also fine. But with this, we all got everything under the hood already. What you need to do as well, what I actually forgot, is to install Firebase and Angular Fire. As I said, we're gonna use Firebase for our geolocation data. And then, just like with Cordova, you have to add the platforms. But before you can do this, you have to actually run Ionic build first in order to have a build folder. So once Firebase is installed, is it actually doing anything? Sometimes I just feel like it's doing nothing, but anyhow, that gives us the chance to talk a second about Capacitor. And I will just restart this. It looks odd to me. So Capacitor is basically Ionic's approach, or their very own approach actually, to build something or improve Cordova version. So Cordova only works on the device, iOS, Android, got this layer, and for the browser, most of the stuff is not really working. So with Capacitor, Ionic is trying a different approach. One of the most common things is that it has a unified API that you can use from the web, from your Electron app, from your progressive web app, and also from your native iOS and Android app at the same time. So that's one thing that's very cool about Capacitor. And actually, when this video goes live, I'm pretty sure Capacitor is available at the first stable version. So at the time recording this, it is actually still in beta, but it is announced to be released pretty soon. So I'm very hopeful that the things we do in here are not changing that much anymore. Otherwise, if it's not working, leave a comment or check out Capacitor on the great internet. So once we've built it, we can add a platform. I will just add the iOS platform. Actually, I think I should have also a vlog episode on Cordova versus Capacitor, so check out my other vlog videos coming out Thursdays if you haven't watched them before. Okay, let's just get a few things upfront done as well, which are installing Capacitor. Okay, done. Creating a Firebase application. I hope you already know how to do this. Go to the console, create a new app, and then also go to the authentication, and I will just delete these. For you, it should look pretty empty. Go to the sign in method and make sure the anonymous login is enabled. We will not build an authentication in this example. That is left for you, the reader, no, the watcher, viewer, whatever it is called. Then also head over to database, and you're gonna have to click start Cloud Firestore or whatever. Don't use the real-time database, it's the old one. Go with the Cloud Firestore and then you're good. Next up is Google Maps. We're gonna need an API key. So simply search for Google Maps get API key. You will come to this page. You can click get started, get an API key, and there you go. And you can also use this API key immediately. Simply copy over this snippet, go to your index.html, and then before the head closes, paste in whatever you got. Actually, we don't need this part. So we only need key, your API key. I will look up mine as well. All right, once the API key is ready, head over to Firebase, go to, okay, let me look, the project settings, I think, and then you should be able to add a new application. So I already got added the web application. You have to click add app, then select web, give it a name, and this will then give you the block, there we go, with the Firebase credentials that you're used to. So copy over this information, go to your environments, environment, and start a new block, which we will call Firebase, and paste in, not like this, but like this, all the information for your Firebase application. Okay, so now we got the API key, we got the Firebase connection, we installed the Angular packages, the Angular Fire packages, we have created a connection to iOS, so Capacitor at iOS seems to work so far. If you got any problems with the pods, this is, or actually you can only build on Mac, of course, for iOS. If you encounter any problems, you have to maybe run pod version and see what it's like. I think Capacitor only works with 1.6 and upwards, and I had to update this to 1.7, so make sure that is working for you as well, because that's a very essential part. Okay, so then we're gonna have to increase our speed a bit because we're already 7 minutes in. So let's jump to the app module, add the imports for everything from Angular Fire that we need, which is the base module, the Firestore module, and the FireAuth module. And all of this, of course, goes to our imports. This one also with initialize app, and then the credentials for Firebase, which are stored in environment.firebase. And the other two simply go right after this. So then we can also close this. Again, you can see this on the tutorial link below this video, as always. And then we can continue with the home page. So let's close this. And for the home page, maybe let's start with Capacitor. So in order to use Capacitor, you don't need any other Ionic native packages, Cordova packages. A few things are already bundled, as you can see right here. So these are already included after we installed or initialized our Ionic application with Capacitor, and we can then use them by extracting the plugin that we want from the plugins of Capacitor core. And we can do it just like this. Also, we're gonna have, or we want to use a Google map, and actually I haven't seen anything regarding the types. I'm not sure, I think there are typings for Google, but we can also do it like this, which will give us the chance to use the Google keyword in our page, which is actually doing something and working, but TypeScript is not recognizing it, so otherwise we would encounter errors. Perhaps I will comment this out, remembering that you said you want to see and learn more on the go. So let's get started with the actual implementation. We need an anonymous login because we want to skip real login. Then we want a connection to Firebase so we can see if there's any location already stored. And then we also want to fill our map with the locations and also start the tracking if anything changes regarding our position. So let's do this. So first of all, AF auth is needed, which we will use for our anon login. Logion, interesting concept, but no. So we're gonna call this immediately. I had this with a button, but actually it doesn't really make any sense. So we can simply use our Angular Fire auth, sign in anonymously, and then we should get back some user credentials. So let's log this out to see what we got. And then we're gonna have to load the Firebase data. And then eventually we also have to update the map later on. Maybe we could also, no, we just leave this for now. As the anon login is immediately called, we can also run Ionic serve. And we can test the whole thing, of course, in the browser. As I said, Capacitor works on the browser as well as on the device. One thing maybe here, if you plan to deploy it to a device, you're gonna have to check out the notes here because Capacitor uses a bit different build system. Basically, with Cordova, your native projects are always completely rebuilt at runtime, and then everything was created automatically. With Capacitor, actually you have to, or should whatever, you should check into your source control the native projects for iOS and Android. That's a bit different approach from them, and you're gonna have to do things that you normally did with your config XML for Cordova now directly in the native projects. So setting these keys for location and for Android, same thing, directly in the native projects. Okay, so here's the app, and there we go. Our user is anonymously logged in. Already we can see it. Of course, normally make a simple login before doing anything with it. Now we can actually make use of our Firebase integration, and therefore we're gonna have to add a new observable first of all. So this will hold the real data that we get, and also if you've worked with Angular Fire before, you know that they're working locations collection with collections and documents. So there's actually a type called Angular Firestore collection, which is basically a reference to the data collection inside your Firebase database. If you go to database, we of course don't have a collection, but we will soon have. So in our case, we want to store the data under the anonymous user ID, tracks, and then all the locations that the user is tracking. Just a simple structure that we can use. So therefore, we gonna call the Angular Fire package. So private Angular Fire storage, Angular, no, not storage, of course, Angular Fire store, and not module, but just Angular Fire store. So there we go. And then we can use the user from our login. So let's have a reference of the user as well. So if the user is null, we're gonna use this.user equals user, and then we can use the user UID, and to the collection track, we're gonna order it by the timestamp. So hold on, we're gonna add some data very soon. And then actually another block, maybe I'll just bring this in later and give us a little second to digest everything. But what we need, of course, is as well Ion view. Let's pick will enter, and in here call something to load our map. Let me bring this in. Load map, there we go. So load map, as you can see, will create new coordinates using whatever my current location. Then specify some map options on how to or how much to zoom, where's the center of the map, and then actually set some map. So in order to use the map, we will use the view child. Can I add all missing imports? Great. We will have a view child map. We will have some markers, that's for later. But for now, you see that we got problems here with the Google keyword. So if we now uncomment this line, you see everything's working again. So that's exactly what we're looking for. So now in order to actually see a map, let's change a bit of our view. And let's hide the map unless we have a user. Let's call this devtactic tracking, and of course, as always, the color primary. So now we should actually see a bit of change in our app, because we automatically perform the anonymous login, which will then establish a connection to Firebase. We're not loading data, but we should be able to see our map, which we don't do because we need some more CSS, I forgot. So simply go ahead with this for now. Of course, just make it look or match your needs, and then we should see a map. Not a lot of zoom, but we could zoom in, zoom out, and we got the map. We got the user credentials, which is already a great progress. All right, actually, I think we can close this. So now we need to start the tracking basically. And to start the tracking, I will add a few items to our homepage. So let's also use div ng if user, because otherwise these things don't make sense. So just to display the user ID, and then 2 buttons to start the tracking and stop the tracking. We had this in the old tutorial as well. No, start tracking is of course a function. So start tracking and stop tracking. And then what we need as well in here is a variable checking if we're currently tracking. So let's set this to false in the beginning, and then this is fine so far. So now we got start tracking and stop tracking. So in order to start and stop our tracking, let me bring them in one by one so the video is not getting too long. So regarding start tracking, we will use finally our geolocation plugin from Capacitor. And actually the usage is pretty much like when you use the Ionic native package. You simply call watch position, and then you will at some point get back a new position. So let's lock this one out. Actually there's a minor issue, but no problem. And if we got a new position, we should of course somehow add this new location. And the way to add this location is pretty much just making a call on our Firebase collection. So simply call add on the collection with the according values of the latitude, longitude, and perhaps a timestamp. And then if you wish to, you can also work a bit more with the Google map. So this would be the code to center the map. Okay, so now on start tracking, we start tracking, and in order to stop the tracking, we're gonna have to keep a reference to this. And actually, if you check it out, this will return a string. So let's say watch is also equal to null in the beginning. And then if we hit stop tracking, we're gonna use the very own ID we got here. Maybe let's format this a bit to call again the geolocation plugin and now ClearWatch. So these are the only 2 places where we interact with Capacitor to get the geolocation. We don't need anything else. The permissions are automatically checked once you call this. Maybe I can also already bring in a bit of code to delete a location. As you can see, or as you perhaps already have seen in the previous Angular tutorials, this is just a delete on the right document. So just make sure you're getting the right ID. And the problem here is I will just also do a few more console logs here and there, just to showcase why we're actually doing some of the things that we do. So right now we should be able to log in. We somewhere have the user ID. This user. Okay, yeah, that is not the real user, but it is in user. So we have to use it like this. And then we can also move this one line down. Okay, sorry about that. The object was nested in there. I forgot about that. So now automatic login, we get the UID, and we hit start tracking. I was already asked up front if I allow this. And then we see a new position comes in with some coordinates, timestamp, whatever. And if we go back to the database and hit refresh, we should see a new collection called locations. And then we should have my very own user UID, which is user something like YJZ. Yes, exactly my ID in the locations. Then we got the track, and here we got a few documents, actually already 4. The problem is, for some reason, my position is changing all the time. And of course, we're not yet displaying anything on the map, which we need to do. But also sometimes the position is triggered twice in the browser. I'm not exactly sure why this is, but on a device, I think it works better. So stop tracking works as well. And now we already got a little list of locations that we want to show on our map. And now things get not tricky, I wouldn't say tricky, just a bit more interesting. So here we should try to load the Firebase data. And in order to display them, we can actually just use the async pipe. We already got the collection, which is an observable, so we should be able to make use of this in our view. So let's craft an ion list below the buttons, and I will also use an ion item sliding. So we got a little slide to delete button to delete one position in here. And besides that, it is just using the values that we've stored like a minute ago, and the locations, which is an observable. Nope. There we go. Locations, observable. And actually, we're not making the right call yet. I think we need to set our locations. So this dot locations, and now normally you would use something like this dot locations collection, whatever snapshot changes or value changes. That's basically up to you. So then we would have an observable, and let's see how this looks like, because now we will encounter a little problem. So there we go, we get all the values. Let's use value changes in here, should work as well. Where are my values? Okay, there we got the values. And if I now swipe one and delete it, we see that we got all the nice values, but we actually don't have this unique ID. And that's always a problem with Firebase, so we always need this little snippet here, which is basically calling the pipe on the snapshot changes with map from from RxJS observable. Can I import this? Let me just bring this in real quick. There we go. And this will now give us access to the payload and also the ID, and construct a new object which holds both the ID and the payload, which then, if you swipe it, finally also gives us the ID that we need in order to delete the object. So now we can comment this in because the position finally also holds the ID. So what is working so far? We can track our location, we can push them to Firebase, and now we just need to display them on our map. So let's again subscribe to the locations. So whenever we get a new locations array, locations, then let's log out new locations. So this means it was updated on Firebase, basically because we pushed or removed something. And then we want to call a new function that we call update map with some locations. So here we can just say this update map with the locations we got. So in our update map, we now need to take care of two things. So this can be called at any time. So we have to remove all previous markers, and then also set all the new markers. So as you can see, we already got the 6 locations. Actually, where's my list? Where's my list gone? Where's my list? I really don't know. I just had it like a second ago, and we also got this, so I'm a bit confused. There's the list again. If I remove something, we also get the callback from the subscribe block, and see all the items. So the last missing part now was to update the map, and therefore I said we first of all need to set all markers that we might have already have to null, or set the map on the markers to null. And then we can go over let location of locations. And then for each and every location in our array, we can create a new position using the same structure like we had. Where did we already use this? I think to map or center the map right here. So again, new position, Google Maps with the coordinates of the data that we got. And then we can create a new marker using new Google Maps.marker. And in here, we now need the position, which is of course the value we just created. Then if you want to a little animation, so you can specify this from Google Maps. The most usual is Google Maps animation.drop, of course. Where's the problem here? And now finally, you will see the connection to this, because when you create a marker, you also specify the map on which the marker should be displayed, which is our very own map. And of course, in here, if we set the map to null, the marker is gone. And of course, also this dot markers push the new marker, so we can keep a reference to this marker in our array and later easily remove them. All right, let's see what is going on in our application. Cannot read property marker in 89. Yeah, makes sense if I have a typo. And then we should perhaps remove a few of those useless entries in here, but we already see the pin dropping to where I live. And now, because we want to easily test things out, we can go to Chrome, More Tools, Sensors, and then fake our location to be, for example, in Berlin. Actually, let's use no override again. Now let's use start tracking. So we should see my first location, yes, my own. And then let's move to Berlin and we see the pin in Berlin. Then let's move to London and another pin right there. And now let's also use, I don't know, San Francisco, and there we go. And of course, all the other pins are still valid as well. Now, the only problem with this is that most of the time there's a duplicate entry called. As I said, I'm not exactly sure why it happens. Maybe you have a solution, so let us know below. But otherwise, we are now able to track our location. We can then store all the data right here to our database account. As I said, create a little login upfront to make this more secure. And then we're using Capacitor in our browser to get the location and also on a device. And finally, Google Maps to display a map with additional markers. So that's it for this epic tutorial. I really hope you enjoyed it. I think this was a good example of using multiple different things together. If you got any questions about Capacitor or anything else that you would like to see, as always, leave a link note below. Hit subscribe, hit like for the video. Make sure to share it, whatever you want to do. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a great day and I'll see you inside the next video.